You're gonna tell me when you're starting, because I don't know what you're doing over there.
You're live.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Trip Show, where we're helping entrepreneurs build the next billion-dollar business. We want to support your journey and see more Treps win rather than lose. How many people can you count that are Treps and failed to build a business from their idea? It's going to shock you when you count them all up, right? Well, that's why we're here. And I'm your host, Gary-Dobbs, bringing to you live this Thursday, the 21st of December in 2017, resources to help you design and build the next billion-dollar business. Now, I could be out doing something else right now, but instead I chose to spend time and money for you so that you can build the assets, not liabilities. Let's get started and make progress. So welcome everybody to the show. I'm glad to have you here. I got something special for you today. Last week, tried out a new format, which got some pretty good reviews of people I sent out to. So we're going to keep rolling with it. And it is to present these ideas and resources to you in a way of on a story timeline. We want to try to create this journey with you and help you create it. And so, Thaddeus Archibald, our production, we're talking about this, and he's want to help produce the show. And we're talking about how can we make this show a little bit more like a lab experiment or a studio, and how could we present that in a way to get a little bit more structure, but to create like there's still more development going on right in the studio. Oh, and Thaddeus, just to let you know, I'm not getting any background music. So if you played the music after the bumper, I'm not hearing it. All right. So what we came up with is today's show title is "It's Time to Break Up Big Tech." There's these big four companies that have more reach and influence than most people realize, right? And there's a Trep out there called Scott-Gallowy, owner of a company, L2 Inc. And he wrote a book he released last week called The Four. And the four it's this really overarching theme. There's so much to it. I think it could become something like sort of a media frenzy, because he's talking about these big four companies that have such a huge impact on people and with the world around us that we need to pay attention to them, and why he's explaining why we need to break up big tech. And these four companies are Google and Facebook and Amazon and Apple, right? And so the way he sees it, I'll give you a brief description, and you can look him up, Scott-Gallowy. The book is called The Big Four, but he presents this to all of his students in every class that he's been teaching entrepreneurship at the New York School of Business. I think it's called Stern School of Business for New York University. And the slide is a diagram of a person, and the brain. He has it linked to Google, and Facebook is linked to your heart. Amazon's linked to your gut, and Apple's linked to your desires to procreate, right? And the way he describes them is he's like, each of these companies have identified with a core instinct that every person has. So every person has a brain. They have thoughts on trying to just challenge yourself and what your point of view is on the world and how you're going to operate and make decisions. Apple is linked, he said, more to the desire to procreate. So like going with the idea that if you're walking around with the $16,000 watch, what you're really telling someone else is like, hey, like telling this woman, if you mate with me, I'm going to improve your chances of survival a lot greater because I'm walking around with a $16,000 watch. Not everybody can afford that. And he just goes on and kind of explains it. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but you can search it on YouTube or the internet, find out more of it. But basically, the idea with these things is it's pretty powerful if you sit back and think of it. Because each of these four companies, so they're connected with this core instinct you have, and that's how they continue to put out products and services based around these core instincts that every person has. That's how they're trying to connect with you. And so I thought it was a pretty smart and powerful way to look at it and to really boil down business. And how does a company like Google or Facebook or Amazon or Apple become these mega giant companies that are multi-billion-dollar businesses, which is what we're here for you with the TREP. So when you're talking about, we're trying to help you become the next billion-dollar business, right? So what better way than to look at other companies that are out there and see about, from one person's perspective, Scott Galloway's perspective, about how they go through and make their decisions to become, and how do they stay that powerful? Because wouldn't you like to be the topping point if your company was one of these big fours and you've got some guy like Scott Galloway saying it's time to break up big tech, and he's talking about your company because your company's so big, so powerful that it's a monopoly, and it really has more reach and more influence in the way people make decisions about stuff than most people give credit to. So I wanted to start out with, think of, don't wait for permission, right? If you're obviously not there yet, let's say you're a TREP that's really gotten some traction, you've had success in your past, but you don't have a company, a clear identifiable brand that is going to reach somewhere. And here at the TREP Show, from past episodes, we've talked about what is the future beyond brands. Well, we call that color point. And color point is your way of really reaching and connecting with people like the way these companies have in Google, Facebook, and Amazon, and Apple, because they are the future beyond brands. These companies are not, they're even more. They're even something more than the traditional brands that you're thinking about. I identify with quite a few different people that have spoke on brands, and I feel like brands are dead. There are a lot of the traditional, and I'm talking about the old ways of building a brand and doing that is just not going to work. It's dead. It's just so competitive out there. So we try to always be forward thinking and like marketing forward or moving forward. How can you yourself so that where people end up going, you're already there. So like what Wayne Gretzky had said, position yourself where the puck's going to be, right? You want to think about running your business that way. And that's why you don't want to wait for permission, So if you're going to make those big moves that end up becoming huge impact on the success that you need, sometimes you've got to go against the grain, or you've got to step outside your comfort zone. You got to do something in a very different way that nobody has done before. Just don't wait for permission. I'd recently watched the story of Chance the Rapper, and he has a business manager that has been with him pretty early on. And he was talking about this, like his business manager, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was talking about it like when they went out to go and produce and turn Chance the Rapper into a well-known rapper and to build his business and to get people aware of him, they were able to do it from day one without a recording company. So he's I think probably the only rapper artist out there that is truly independent. Some other rappers or artists might say they're independent, but they do have other labels and people behind them. This guy, their camp, they do not. They have absolutely no label, no record, or anybody behind them like a distributor or so forth. They are truly an independent artist and company. So you could take this, for example. They're not waiting for permission. You think the business manager said he went out and bought a book, and it said everything you need to know about the music business, and it was written by some entertainment lawyer. And so they used that a lot when they had to get on the phone and negotiate to do things like getting Chance the Rapper onto other artist tracks, get him to appear in other albums, or do writing like for Kanye West and things like that. And so if you think about it, you got these young men that are out there trying to make their mark, and then they're trying to do things, and then they're being told no, or they're being told like, hey, wait a minute, who is he? We're not going to put this guy on a track with someone like Taylor Swift or somebody. Who is he to do that? There's no way. Like they had to break down those barriers to get to that next point. So don't wait for permission. Make sure you are seriously, how the game works. You maybe have some new ideas about how the game could work better, and make those, put those into your playbook, put those into action, and actually Get yourself there. Don't listen to what other people tell you the way things have to be. The next part is think about, learn how to see the world as it isn't. So you really want to imagine your business and think about putting it together just in your own unique way. Like you could be a young Trev, you could be someone that's early in the game, your business has not exploded yet or it's not big. So why not just use what you have to try to produce something different? Try to put something out there that's very different and unique to your company. So, here at the Trev Show, we kind of really we see creativity and artwork and things like that as a high regard, because we feel like that is the future beyond brands, is having a not so much of a hierarchical system like in most businesses, or analyze businesses or just make decisions based on numbers. We don't really look at things like that. We look at it a little bit differently on using your creative abilities or using your intuition to make certain decisions, because you just might be in a certain place right now and going through certain things to where you're going to want to do something a certain way, which is going to go against the textbook. Like no textbook's going to tell you to do it that way, but you just might feel like, you know what, I think it's worth it. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to try to figure out, make it work. So use those abilities that you have, really pressure to challenge yourself to do that, to make those leaps. And next you could think about, never allow fear to get in your way, right? So I know for me, like I think of fear, like fear is usually it's about something you don't know, so you don't understand it, so you're fearful of it. So I would never allow something like that to get in my way for what I'm doing. So I might want to continue to really, lean on your beliefs, lean on my values, lean on that stuff to make decisions, and to never allow something like an obstacle to get in the way. Right? There's an old saying that I've used. It's called obstacles are just those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goal. So that was a quote by Henry Ford. And I really think it's true, and it applies here, because a lot of times you're going to feel like you're going into uncharted territory that you feel like you're just going in the dark and you have no idea what's ahead of you. It's a good thing, because you can rely on your instincts. You can rely on your values and your principles and your beliefs to help guide you into a place you're not going. One way that I've always described and thought of a trap is like the Vikings. So if you know anything about the Viking story, when they came from the Scandinavian countries, and before they moved on and past the large bodies of water and went into like England and conquered England and was taking land and taking wealth and just conquering and command and conquering other lands and stuff to grow their culture and stuff, was they were limited. They were having very limited resources of where they were. Like where the Vikings came from, it was scarce food to eat. Like it was not in a climate where you can grow fruits and vegetables. Like these are severe weather conditions. So a lot of times they were eating, like animals or things like that. So they realized that for their survival, they had to go reach other territories so that they can find more habitable land, places where they can grow and flourish their community and have a more sustainable environment to be able to grow from. So that's how they had gone out. And I really see that ability that they had to just go into, build these boats and then sail across these waters, and they had no idea what was on the side. They had no idea that there was island over there. Right? So before they went out, they just said to themselves that, there is something worth my while across these waters that I need to get to, but they had no idea what it was. And that's really the way you feel like as a Trep, is you're like, there is something beyond what I can see right now, beyond this body of water. There's more land. There's something else out there for me that I can get, but I just don't know what it is, but I just know it's there. I can't tell you what it is. I can't describe it, but I know it's there, right? This is like the feelings of the Trep. These are things that you often think about, and you're obviously a lot of times going out trying to find these pathways to get you to where you want to be. So never allow fear to get in your way, right? The next one is allow possibility to feed your soul. So think about, as you are trying to create this business and build something, the best you can do is work with the skills you have, right? So in my business, like this was earlier this year, I think in the spring, even I was meeting these guys, these data scientists. And I had met a few of them at this company. I thought, boy, this data, big data topic or data science is really interesting to me. I don't know anything about it. I didn't know much. I didn't know how it worked, or I didn't know what skills you needed to have to be one. So I just set out, I was like, well, it seems pretty important for me and my business to have some grasp and understanding of what big data means, you know, and like how companies are approaching the challenge of big data, and who are they employing, and how are they getting through, and what skills do these data scientists need to have. So I would go out and start meeting, and I was connecting with people, and I got to connect with an owner of a company that's what one thing they do is teach people to be data scientists. And another company he had was a marketing company. So I realized later that these things were in hand, because it's one job that is very high demand, that there's not enough people to do the work, is data scientists. So it's becoming more and more of a job in companies that they need to hire for, because there's not enough people that understand data science and that can do the work. So they need to train people. And he had created this company to train people on becoming a data scientist, to do the work and be able to have the skills to do it. And so I just started going out and trying to meet these people to understand it, because it wasn't something that I wanted to know like very deep. Like I didn't want to become a data scientist and have the skills to do it. I just wanted to understand something about it, so that as I grow my company and build it and become more valuable to the marketplace, that I could hire data scientists and I can understand what their job is, and then I can know why I'm hiring them, and then I can put them together, put them in a workforce around with my company, so I can begin to offer new solutions to big companies like Google or Salesforce or something like that. Because I want to work with companies like that. I want companies like that to have such a challenge and a problem that they come to a consulting firm like what I have to solve those big challenges, because I have the resources and I have the ability to provide these solutions. So, and see, if you think back to this, like the way it initially started was, when you think about allow possibility to feed your soul, that's all it was for me. I just allowed possibility to feed the direction of where I was going to go. Like, how was I going to become a better Trek? And how was I going to grow my business and continue to push it forward on a pathway to riches? So if like I was one of these Vikings back in the day, and I needed to sail across this water to feed, you know, to feed my community, or to us to get more resources to be able to live and prosper, we had to find somewhere else to get it, because we didn't have it anymore where we lived. It became dry, barren. There just wasn't anything left, right? So that's sort of the mentality, the think of you need to have as a trip. And so go to it with on the next point, and that's thinking of making a difference to a handful. So if you imagine the story of the Vikings, he wasn't trying to solve the world's problem. He wasn't trying to do sort of problem for billions of people, even hundreds of thousands of people. He was just trying to solve a problem to make a difference in the lives of his community, because he saw what their family, what they would experience as they would go through each season. You know, they probably had really long winters. They'd have time where they couldn't grow fruits and vegetables because it was so cold. So it's like, what are you going to eat? You know, how are you going to live? How are you going to continue to survive? So a pretty harsh environment that they lived in. And so you want to think about, like, if you're an entrepreneur, you've got to just think about your business as a community. Even if it's just you, you know that this business is going to get bigger. So allow that possibility to feed your soul, and just go there. Like, act as if you already have the need right now to hire, like what I did, like data scientists and other people, because a company like Google is knocking on your door with a contract worth $50 million because they've got a challenge that they need solved right now, and they don't have the capability, and they're looking to hire a company like you to do it. So use that type of, just use that type of wild scenario that you just created I mean, I created it out of thin air to be able to propel me forward to make more decisions on getting me in the direction that I wanted to be, right? I wanted to be proactive about the direction and where my company was at in the future rather than reactive. I do not like to sit back and react to the way things are going and make my decisions, because I feel like if I act like reactive, I'm letting other people or other situations outside my control make decisions for me. I would rather use my own intuition, my own creativity to come up with solutions to problems that I feel that are out there, right? So keep that in your mind. Make a difference to a handful of people. And then the next part is change something you care about. So really get passionate about something that you want to change, and think about how can you make it different. You might even not know enough to really what's out there. It might be changing things around you for people that don't know the solutions for, and you're offering something that maybe somebody else is already offering halfway around the world, or maybe bigger companies are offering it at a much higher level just because you don't work with enterprise companies. So you're not aware of these types of experiences or challenges, because the problem that a micro business would have, like a micro business being a business with like one person or 5 people might have, is they're just not going to have the same challenges that a company with 5,000 people have, right? So you could step outside that and challenge yourself to really imagine problems that a bigger company would have, to be able to push your company forward. Because if you really want to grow and get bigger and become more relevant to the market, most likely, I think in size, you just have to do more volume. It's the only way to get there. I don't think there's any small business owner out there that have said they're making an impact on the world and they've got 1 or 2 stores, each with maybe 3 employees, and they're just serving, a couple communities in 2 places. I mean, there's not much of an impact or a change that they can make at that level. So, Treps are people that think about, if I'm going to start this business here and then start it again in another community, well, you're thinking more on scale. So you're trying to think, how could I start all these different businesses again and again and again, everywhere, anywhere in the world, like a McDonald's or like a Starbucks, right? So keep that in your mind and think about really challenging yourself on possibilities. Now, the next part you can think of is make meaning your currency, right? So this is one thing that I really relate to. I don't know what you Treps out there think of, but for me, even though the money is important, money is not the reason why I'm there building my business, right? So the meaning behind the business and what I'm trying to do, sure, yeah, sales and making money is important, but that's not the meaning. That's not like the underlying existence of what my business is around for, right? So I feel like if you make that your goal, make meaning your currency, you're going to become much more relevant and much bigger and make way more money than you could have imagined by that. Because companies like Google, they didn't get to where they were starting out with the idea of making cash their currency. No, they made meaning their currency. They wanted to fix the problem of search. They wanted to do something different because they felt like it was really a problem for people, and they wanted to improve people's lives. So they came up with their algorithm, and they came up with the way that they created the search engine that was called Google. And it did solve a lot of problems, and it did work far better than the way any other engine had worked back at that time, right? But so they didn't start this with the idea like, hey, let's build the next multi-billion-dollar company, possibly the first $1 trillion company, because they could do it, but they didn't think like that when they first started. So you want to really try to just look at those problems around you and solve those problems and make that meaning your currency. Next would be don't be afraid of the answers. So this is where you need to know the questions to ask and really be open to what the answer is. So this is where, if we go back to that story that Scott-Gallowy is talking about, this is what Google's gotten very, very good at, and what they understand about people, and why a lot of us want to try to find an answer to something. So we'll go to the search engine like Google because they're very good on giving us relevant answers that are going to solve our issue right now. So not being afraid of the answer, well, he understands, like, and the way he talks about Google is, as a company like Google understands people so well, and they know that people they might know the questions to ask, but they definitely don't know the answers. So we're always searching for the answer. But we realize intuitively, instinctively, people usually should just be focusing on the question, right? Because the question you ask is what's going to get you to where you want to be. Now, a lot of people you might, I met with people like this when I was in college and I studied architecture. There were some people that acted like they always knew the answer. And, like these people are like know-it-alls, or they always know what the answer is. It was like, well, I mean, it's true that might be the answer in this case, but it's not the answer for this, or it's not the answer in this case. So there's truly never going to be the one right answer. You'll never have one defined truth. It's always relative to the people involved and subjective to their circumstances of why they're in, right? So don't be afraid of the answers you get. Start focusing more on what are the questions I need to ask, right? Because a lot of the people, the reps out there that have started these bigger companies and gotten so big, was because they continue to know which questions to ask. And they continue to, okay, well then just get an answer for that so they can solve it and they can move on to the next one. This is also a strategy that salespeople use, is one thing called question-based selling, as they use that strategy to serve better and find the problems and the challenges that the customer is frustrated with and they might not be able to explain, but the salesman's so good at question-based selling that they can get to that challenge and that problem, and they realize exactly what the right solution is and help that customer also recognize what that problem is too, so that they can have the right solution. Next is, remember, it doesn't have to matter to everyone. So this company that you're starting and you're running is you can just focus on a segment in the group of people to solve a problem right now. It's not going to dictate and put in stone the size of your company as it goes on, because you can grow your company, you can keep starting new businesses within your company and become really massive. So you don't have to solve everybody's problem. You can just focus on some issues or challenges that are going to matter to a certain group of people, right? So be very specific. That's why so many entrepreneurs have described, like, that's why starting a niche business is so important, because it really gets you clear on your business purpose, and it gets you to focus on solving just some key issues, some core problems that people have, so that you can become, the go-to business for solving those challenges. Next is, you want to make people your inspiration. So you could look at these challenges you have, and maybe you describe these group of people that are out there, and you could make them your inspiration on starting your business. So you're like, oh, if I just had 1,000 loyal customers to my business, I would really feel like, it would solve a lot of our day-to-day struggles, to where we can start just operating more smoothly and start having more time to focus on the bigger picture, right? Because if you're an early stage company, every day is like do or die, because you're just like, oh my God, we had great sales this week, woohoo, and then 2 weeks go by and you realize, oh my God, after 3 weeks later, you realize we didn't make enough sales in the last 2 weeks. We were spending too much time celebrating our victories from 3 weeks ago. And here we are again in that same position, dire straight, where we got to make sales. So you want to try to have some sort of a guide and format and infrastructure to your business, so you can keep making those incremental changes. And what better way to do it than to make people your inspiration, and think, if I had 1,000 loyal customers, what would they expect of me? What challenges do they have? What challenges do they have constantly that I know that once I keep solving it for them, and if they're okay for a while, that, well, I can attract another 1,000 people that have the same similar issue, challenge, or another 5,000 people that have that challenge. So you can see where that can grow from there, from just understanding that key demographic group. So next is let passion be your master, right? This is where, when Thaddeus and I have been producing this show and putting it out since January this year, there's been a lot of times that we weren't certain about exactly where we were going. Some days we felt really good about the show. Some days we didn't feel so great about the show. Sometimes we hit points where we were motivated and we were ready to pump out something we felt on point. There was other times that we had put together, we'd look back and we'd feel like there was something missing and something else that we needed to do and add to the show, right? Well, it was our passion that was our master there. Like we were willing to face those failures and the successes along this entire journey because of the passion that we have for putting together the best podcast possible for Treps out there to really help you build the next billion-dollar business. I mean, if you know exactly everything about each of us right now, I think most people would question, like, who are these guys? How are they qualified to be able to help a person become the next billion-dollar business, right? Well, we don't have to have everything, right? Like we can actually let passion be our master here and actually help that to help us reach and be creative enough to find those solutions that are going to solve the issues right now, the things that we're piecing together and trying to build for you, right? So you don't always have to seek the founder of $1 billion business to become the next $1 billion business. You could stick with us here on the Trep Show in this journey and get there with us and rely on us as a resource for you, as a guide to help you build your next $1 billion business. So we want to see you get there. That's at the heart of the matter of why we exist, what the Trep Show is about, and where we say $1 billion business because we know that there's going to be a lot of businesses that maybe they're going to be worth several $100 million. Well, that's okay. But we want to filter out the Treps that are not serious about becoming a really, really big business. Because some people might say, oh yeah, I'm really successful or I'm really focused on success. I really want to build a business, but they maybe don't really have an idea in mind about how big they want it to be or how much value they want to create in the world. So they might get to a point where their business does $50 million a year, and then they just end up coasting for the next 10 years because that's changed their life dramatically. But I mean, it's a valuable business, and let's say they're worth $50 million a year, but that is not to us the type of business owner that we're trying to target. I mean, it's impactful. It could make some small differences here and there, but we're really trying to connect with those Treps that have that insatiable hunger and desire to create the next $1 billion business. And as crazy and radical as it seems, that's what those people are committed to. So you're committed to really wanting to become the next $1 billion business. And you're just gradually making those changes and getting to that place that you need to be. Keep making those decisions and take actions on getting to that place. But you know it's such a possibility, but you are working so hard day in, day out at it. You know, we really want to help those people. Those are, like, to us, the core true Trep fans that we're trying to connect with. But we know that what we're doing is going to help so many other people, even the Trep that is just like, man, if I could just create a net worth of $50 million with my business or businesses and real estate portfolio, that would change my life and a lot of people's lives, right? We know we can help them too. So we want them a part of the show, but we want you to understand that what we really drives us. And like, we are truly letting passion be our master here. And this is the kind of clarity that you want to have in your business. You want to be able to state wild and crazy facts like that to be able to make intentions to be able to get to that place. So you need to allow yourself that possibility to get there, right? Next is, let's think about, like, if you gotten to the point of success and you've gotten at such a high point to where you realize there's some other improvements, maybe some radical changes you want to make because you've made some big differences, but now you want to start making a more meaningful impact in a different way. Or maybe your business has suffered massive defeat. Maybe you've suffered massive challenges and defeat personally in your life, right? So this next kind of series of steps we're going to talk about is like renovations. So if you got really to a low point, you had to make these bounce back from failure, or you hit rock bottom, how are you going to be able to rebuild from that, right? So the first part we want to think about is like launch your ideas from the heart. So if there's nothing else that you have, if you have no resources around you, but your passion is your master and it's guiding you and it's fueling you every single day to work like crazy, Well, if you can launch your ideas from your heart, now you're going to be able to start with these ideas that are truly meaningful to you, to where no matter if you're high or you're low, you can always reconnect with that source. This is an powerful source. If you can be able to describe and clarify it for yourself, because this is where I think it's going to be very different for people, because the way I believe, each person has their own story to tell. So I'm not a very judgmental person. I'm a very clear person on what I want and decisions that I've made for myself and where I'm trying to go. But one thing I don't do is I don't judge other people, because I know that people, there's a story behind them that I don't know. So like if I'm at Starbucks working and I'm around this person that's acting weird or there's something wrong, like I'm not going to sit there and judge it, because I know, there's probably something significant about them that I don't know that has happened, of why they're a certain way. So maybe there's a certain challenge that they've got to get past so they can move beyond that barrier, so they can start acting more of their true self and really reach more into the power that they have and test the abilities that they have to get somewhere, rather than, because I'm not that type of person that's going to sit there and focus on somebody's flaws, focus on their negativity, on their negative things about them or qualities, because we all have it. Every person has it. Even the founders of these large, great companies that we've mentioned, we've been talking about the big four, each of them have it today. One of them, Steve Jobs, isn't here today, but he had a lot of major flaws, even up until he died. But if those things didn't matter, what mattered was the things that made him great at what he did and what made him powerful at what he did, so he can continue on that mission, and be able to wake up every day and say, this is something that I want to do, right? Next is build a legacy and not just an empire. So you want to really think about, like, look at the legacy that Steve Jobs had, right? There was this quote that he's been known to say every day. He would ask himself, if this were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do? So you could go to sleep and wake up every single day with that question in head and that statement in your mind, to refresh and reconnect yourself to why you're doing what you're doing, right? So that's why it's so important to understand your center, your business, of why you're doing the work you're doing. Why do you have your business, right? Always reconnecting with that why, because as long as once you know what it is, and when you do know what it is, it's going to continue to fuel you every day until infinity. So you'll always be able to recharge yourself by understanding and reconnecting with that statement. So there's a lot of time challenges and things that come up that might get in the way of where you're trying to be. So you want to be able to reconnect with that source. Always be clear. This is something that you've got to do daily. There's a lot of people that do this. Steve Jobs had done it. lyor-cohen had done it. They would have these questions that they would ask themselves every day. And it would help them make decisions for the rest of the day. And this is what kept them on a path to where they were able to go and plow through in that direction and really become so successful at what they did and connect with the right people. So build your legacy and not just an empire, right? Focus on what your legacy is. Focus on what you're going to leave behind. And focus on, like, this entity that you're building, this business is going to supply jobs for, maybe it's 500,000 people. And when you go, you know that 500,000 people are working for an organization that is not only providing them financially, but also giving them a lot more meaning or giving them other resources and abilities. Maybe it's just the time that these employees are with your company for a 2-year stint. And it helped launch them to get to a place where they can really do something more meaningful in their life, right? So your company's never really owning anything like that. You're just renting all these assets. So like the people that work in your company, like if I was the owner and creator of Google, I would look at it as all these people working in my business, helping create the assets that value our business. We're just renting those. They're helping do important work for this business. Now, we don't own their creativity, but we do, we would own the assets that they're creating and managing for us inside the business. So if they become empowered and smarter and see holes and do things that we don't want to do in the business, they could leave after a year and go do something else. And from that experience of working at my company or at a company like Google, it could be a launching pad to get them to where they want to be, right? And that's just the way I've thought about this for years now as I try to look forward and think about my future success. So you want to keep your values front and center. These are things that you definitely don't ever want to disobey. Everyone, like you could have 5 different people that each have a set core values, but each of them are very different. Each of them are not going to get along ideally with the other person, right? People standing in the room with each other that are really making impact, really running a business that's making an impact in the world. It's valued. They're reaching their goals. They're going farther and faster than they've ever done before. They become stronger. But each of them don't have the same values. So you could really it's really about you keeping your values front and center. You understanding what those mean to you, so that you can make your future decisions and not be misled by, let's say, a faulty influencer who misguided information to make a decision, right? So you need to protect yourself from people like that. I've been seeing a lot of stuff like that out right now because of, say, for example, you look at Bitcoin. We're talking about it. It's such a huge trend, and they're talking about all this value that's happening, and this hype and this attention towards it. But I just don't pay attention to those influencers because I've seen so many people on my list, the Facebook friends list, that talk about this, even ones that they aren't even in a financial business. Like they're not a financial investor. They're not stock investors. They don't analyze business and value or invest in currencies or commodities or anything like that. But they're trying to talk like telling you need to invest in this. Look, I've been telling you for months. And they're trying to use that as credibility. Those people, when they do that, I feel like they got a problem because they're not staying to their lane. You know, like they need to stay in their own lane and stop trying to be an expert on everything. Because these people are just trying to use attention and get people to listen to them and always tell them something about when they were right. So most of the time about anything where they're wrong, about something when they're wrong, they're telling you because it happened, but look where I'm at today. And they have some sort of a success to stand on. So I just don't follow people that talk on hype like that because I know what my values are. I keep them front and center. And there's a statement that I've learned that when you have 4 levels of intelligence, one of them is there's the person that knows what they know and they know what they don't know. And this is something that I really challenged myself to put this front and center with me in 2008. So ever since 2008, I have kept that value front and center and always made sure that I know what I know, but I know what I don't know. So if the topic comes up about something I don't know, I'm not going to talk about it. Or I'm not even going to try to sound like I know what I'm talking about, right? I'm just going to say, I don't know anything about that. Tell me, because I don't know anything, right? And a lot of this, and I did this because I knew a lot of the really smart influencers and people that are really making a big change in a good way that operate like this. They don't talk about things they don't know. They don't have to sound smart and be this genius that knows everything because really nobody is. So they're smart enough to understand that it's better to just talk about what you do know. The next one is embrace your failures alongside success. So success is really one big failures. So I always think about, like, if it's a big mountain, standing on top, I'm at the top, but I'm standing on all the failures that I made to get there. Embrace those failures you've made that have gotten you to reach the success that you reached. Forget about those, because so people would say that if we're talking about in business, because we are talking to Treps here, we're talking about business, they're probably going to tell you they made way more failures than they did successes. And it's from all those failures and all those mistakes that they made and learned from them that they were able to achieve success, right? So use that pile of failures as your platform to get to the next level. Our show a couple weeks ago where we talked about the levels of influence, and you can get a little bit more deep dive on that. I want to finish off with, how would you change right now? So this was going to that question I was thinking of when he asked himself, so on. Lyor-Cohen would ask himself a question as well. And he would ask himself, it was something about, I don't remember the question exactly, but it was something about, who am I going to meet that could possibly change the landscape in the music industry? Remind himself every morning, every single day for like more than 30 years. Remind himself to stay focused that he is in the music business and he's looking for great artists that have become the next change the landscape in music, right? So like today, you might look at it as some hot musical talent is one artist named Halsey, right? Like she's become very well known and popular recently, but she was not. So her success and her industry is very, very new. She's gotten onto a lot of big platforms with big artists that have large followings. So you look at it like people like that have been able to get to a position to where they can make some sort of change. So you want to ask yourself these questions. So like Lyor-Cohen's asking himself, because he's trying to find somebody that could potentially, let's say, I'm not saying he is, but whoever was involved with Halsey, if Lyor-Cohen was involved, he became involved because he was asking himself this question every single day. Like, who could I meet today that's going to change the landscape in the music industry? Open to maybe getting to know people or seeing something with someone that other people don't see, right? So asking yourself some question like this, so you've got one that like Lyor-Cohen had asked him, or the famous quote statement from Steve Jobs, if today were my last day, what I'm going to do, would I be happy with that, right? So come with your own version of that. And think about that question, because this is such a general question that anybody could apply to anything you're doing. But write that down. Think of that question, write it down, record it, however it is you absorb information and learn, and put that in writing, or put it in an audio file, or put it in a screen graphic on your screen so that you see it every single morning, every day, and you ask yourself this so that you can reset yourself and remind yourself every single day about why you're doing what you're doing, right? Because this is really connecting with your why statement. So there's a lot of meat in there. I hope, and I know it's a fast talk, I'm really powering through this, but I feel like I want to boost and motivate you and get your energy up so you could feel motivated and empowered to really go out and make a big impact and be able to do that from any position that you're at. Like here at the Trep Show, we follow the 4 guidelines of educate, we engage, we empower you until we can connect with you. So we use these statements as some sort of principles to help guide us in future shows and future things that we put together to make value for you and create it in your business so that you can apply these things to your business, right? So join us into the Facebook Facebook group, what we call the Trep Talk. Search it on Facebook, called the Trep Talk group, and join us, get a part of the conversation. We're going to be putting up some new and different materials in there to try to find things that is valuable to you and how you like to get information. But join us, request to join that community. You can always go to our website at thetrepshow.com and join our email subscriber list, where we'll send you a little information each week and keep in contact with you, and you can keep updated on future events. So when we make changes, we make things and plan that you're a part of that change, or you're a part of what's coming up next before anybody else. So make sure you join the Trep members group by going to our website and subscribing to that list. Well, we want to thank everybody for listening and for being there with us. We appreciate you listening. And, as always, we're here to help you become the next great founder. Make it a great week, everybody. Until next week.